Let us talk about your eternal entity. This is the central aspect. This is the most important thing. This is the most essential aspect. It is 100 times more important than all methods, know-hows which we acquire in order to achieve spiritual progress. Much more important is this insight of who you are, who a human being really is as an entity, how we are structured. If a human being receives a note where it reads, I am ... and this 50 times, and we would continue the sentences, something like that would always come out. A German, an Arab, a Turk, a father, 3 children, a soldier, a banker, an atheist, a Christian, and everybody's darling, a rich man, an unhappy woman, and so forth. All these parameters relate to what we call person, to the incarnated one, not the incarnating one. Who are you when you are not incarnated right now? Once in a while you are incarnated, you know that. Once in a while you build yourself a new person for the actual purpose of your development. A new incarnation. But who is the one who does this? Who builds a special expression for a special space-time continuum? Who is this entity? The central point is that this entity, which you are, is entirely different from what constitutes your current person, which you are also. The difference is, which we know as the difference between content and form, between universal and concrete, between possible and real. And as a decision is a small selection, a small segment of the whole area of all possibilities. Your person, your incarnation, is a small selection of the sum of all the possibilities of the self. The tip of the iceberg, the visible, the focal point, but not what creates the focal point. It is like in this analogy of the focal point. It is created with a lens and the sunlight, and it is hot and concrete, very much perceptible, but does not have an existence on its own. It has only been created due to the lens and the sunlight, and likewise the person, the actual one of you, the one before and the one coming, which you will rebuild again. It is very perceptible. The friction between the self and the matter is very perceptible, and still it is the smallest part of you. If we expand our insight and we understand that we are selves, eternal, creative, divine entities, which for themselves always build new concrete expression in the new cultural environments, in new time periods, that we are these entities, then something happens in the depth. Then you begin to feel and to foresee and better understand the goals, the purpose, or even the mission of the actual incarnation. Then you can already put it into words and it becomes clear. Then it gets simple. And this great meta-resource, which you are, will radically and decisively change the life of that person. Let us now look at how the self builds the person. The self is not spiritual. The self is not energetic. The self is not material. On the level of evolution where selves develop, where you develop as an entity, as an individuality, this is still not the incarnation. This is a self-development, a self-creation, a self-birth. On this level of evolution, there is still no distinction between information, energy, and matter. This oneness has not separated yet into the Trinity. Of this unified info-energetic density, the self consists. Exactly the same substance has what we call God Creator. The relationship between what we call God Creator and the self is like the relationship between the ocean and a wave. It is the same element, the same water. There is no difference between the wave and the ocean. The deeper you dive into the wave, the deeper you are in the ocean. There is no boundary in between. Wave is ocean, a concrete expression. And so the self is God, a concrete expression of it, the individual side of God. It is not a creation of God. The self is creator, not a creation. The totality and the individuality of the level of creation develop simultaneously. The total creator and the individual creator, this is what we call God and human. It is the first polarity among all other polarities. At that point, there is still no creation. There is no planet Earth, no sun, no universe, but the human being already exists, still not in the incarnated condition, instead as an individual creator. After that comes the separation into information, energy, and matter. And here, there is also a transformation within you as the self. On this level of yourself, or you as a self, you receive, so to speak, 3 sides. Like a prism has 3 sides. An informative, an energetic, and a material side. Let us now look at that picture, at that scheme. The great circle, consisting of 3 colors, which merge into each other. This is the totality of the self. And as you see, there are the words information, energy, and matter. Meaning, the self has 3 sides. An informative side, with the name of spirit, Geist in German. An energetic side, with the name soul, Seele in German. And also a material side. Here we are not talking about matter, instead of the principle of densification. We call the material side of the self the subtle body, Leib in German. These 3, spirit, soul, and subtle body, we can describe them as cosmic instances of the self. Spirit and soul are common expressions. In our culture, what we describe here as the subtle body has been put into the shadow, has been forgotten. Why? Well, in our tradition, the physical has been demonized and been associated with dirt and sin. So, this is no miracle. For a cosmic instance, the subtle body is very concrete, very compacted. This is the blinded out cosmic instance in us. This is what the Native Americans see as a power animal, as a magical, knowing, protective entity. This is not something external. It is something internal in you, as well as the spirit and the soul, which are inseparable parts in you. Now we see how the self separates itself, how Trinity develops from oneness. This is the antithesis. And then there is what we call incarnation. We can better say impersonification. It is not just about that your spiritual side goes into the flesh. It does not occur in that manner. Instead, the person is built out of these 3 aspects: the informational, the energetic, and the material aspect. This is what is located in the inner circle. And here you see that the spirit forms the intellect, the mind. The soul builds the psyche of the person. And the subtle body creates the physical body, Körper in German. And this trinity, or threefold unity, this synthesis, it is oneness as well as trinity. This threefold unity of intellect, psyche and body is exactly what we describe as person, or as incarnation, as the visible human being, as the timely, spatial human being, in comparison to the self, which is out of time and out of space. This threefold symmetry brings the whole thing to the point. In this manner, you create your actual person for each new life, with new abilities, each new assignments, a representative in time and space. And this person gathers its experiences, develops new capabilities, which later, after the integration of that person, which we call death, these newly acquired abilities and experiences are turned over to the self. And exactly that is the sense of the incarnation. Due to the incarnations, you develop yourself, your self. You expand, you experience yourself in the depth. Many human beings say, I know that I have a higher self, but I do not feel it. At first, the self is higher, but it is also lower. It is wider and also narrower. It is lower vibrating and higher vibrating. But you can also leave out all these attributes and just call it the self. The word higher self supposedly implies its spiritual nature, but the self is not spiritual. It is whole. Therefore, what is this statement that I do not feel myself? It is not correct. There is no human being who does not feel his self. Each human being is the self in person. You are always the self, the person once in a while. Why do human beings allege that they do not feel the self? There is an expectation that the awareness of the self should be something special, something concrete. We are so calibrated in this world that awareness has a special character, to take an object into our hand and feel it. And all of this does not apply to the self. The self is total. You swim in the self the whole time. The self is closer to you than your own breath. We expect a certain perception, and it does not exist. In every second you feel yourself multiple times, but it is so absolute, familiar and normal that you do not have a special sensation. You expect a certain frequency where the awareness appears, and it is not there. It is like trying to find the wallet under the street lamp because this is where the light is. But it is not there, it is in the dark. It is wide and broad, and it is total. It is something obvious, something self-evident, the self. The communication between you as the self and you as the person lives incessantly, namely, based on the three aspects which we have explained earlier. Spirit communicates permanently with the intellect. It does not have to be a great flash of genius. These are the most clearly inputs. but there is also a silent stream of authentic thoughts, often without any reason, just as pure result, which shows up in the intellect. This is the language of the spirit. This is the conversation of the spirit with the intellect, from self to the person. But it is not perceived as such, as a form of communication. Also regarding the energetic aspect, there is also a steady exchange between the soul and the psyche of your person, exchanges of energies, feelings and emotions. This stream is more obvious to be felt. Here you can better recognize the true feelings and separate them from the scum. Regarding the third aspect, the subtle body communicates permanently with the physical body. This communication is so total, it is more like directing. This is the most interfering instance. It is not just advising, it is a truly regulating force. The millionfold of processes which occur each second, beginning with all the chemical processes to light communications in the cells via biophotons, which instantaneously connect all the cells in the body with each other, like an orchestra. This works over the light, not over chemical processes, which are way too slow. The true and most important, most relevant communication is using light, which the body creates itself. And the subtle body directs all of this. It is a steady communication and control of the physical body. Without this control, physical life would not be possible. Beyond that, there are also powerful impulses, which we sometimes call instincts. This is the language of the subtle body. You see, the communication exists. It is just such that we do not separate it from the totality of thoughts, feelings and impulses. We do not see a qualitative difference, but it exists. If we learn the language of the self, to know, to recognize, to utilize, then we can much better utilize the inner guidance. Good, my friend. I hope you enjoyed it.